Chapter 1. Hello, I want a divorce. In the third year of their marriage, Sincere Clark decided to get a divorce. However, he was doing it without his wife knowing. The lawyer across from him, after hearing his purpose, spoke in a formulaic tone. If you wish to divorce, both parties need to sign a divorce agreement. Then, once the 1-month cooling-off period ends, the process is complete. Is your wife not here today? Sincere was silent for a few seconds. I will have her sign it. Very well. I'll draft a divorce agreement for you now. After waiting for a moment, Sincere received the agreement. He walked downstairs with his head bowed, reflecting on everything that had happened recently. He had just reached the front desk when a familiar voice called out to him. Sincere, what are you doing at the law firm? Looking up, his heart skipped a beat as he met Victoria Bellwether's understanding, captivating eyes. Who would have thought he would come to get a divorce, consulting a law firm where his own wife worked? But she wouldn't find out, he told himself. After all, she had never truly paid attention to him. Thinking this, he took a deep breath, trying to hide the tension in his voice. Just consulting on a few matters. Oh, right. Mom and Dad mentioned transferring that property last time. The draft is ready. It needs your signature. Saying this, he took out the divorce agreement in his hand, flipped directly to the last page, placed it on the counter, and handed her a pen. The last page of the agreement only had a signature line. As a lawyer, her professional habit made Victoria frown. She was about to pick it up for a closer look, but catching sight of a familiar figure by the elevator entrance out of the corner of her eye, she hesitated for only a second before taking the pen and signing the place Sincere indicated. All right, if that's all, you can leave. I have work to do. The weight Sincere had been carrying lifted, but was immediately replaced by a self-mocking thought. If she had just taken one extra look, she would have known she wasn't signing a property agreement at all, but a divorce agreement. Unfortunately, her gaze just now had been completely captivated by Julian Harrison, who had just entered. Looking at that handsome, striking face, Sincere felt a mix of emotions. He couldn't help but tighten his grip on his bag and turn to leave the law firm. After the automated glass doors closed, two voices faintly drifted into his ears. Victoria. Who was that just now? A new client here to consult about a divorce. Victoria's cool voice held a hint of tenderness. Why are you here so early? Wait a few minutes for me, and I'll take you out for lunch, okay? Hearing the nearly coaxing tone from inside, and looking at the signed divorce agreement in his hand, Sincere offered a bitter smile. Yes, he was indeed here to consult about a divorce. Soon, in just one more month, Victoria would have what she wanted. Sincere Clark and Victoria Bellwether were married in secret. Apart from their parents, no one knew they were husband and wife, including the star she held a candle for. Marrying in secret was her decision. They were college classmates. From the first day of freshman year, Sincere was instantly smitten with Victoria, the campus beauty. He relentlessly pursued her for 4 years, but she remained completely unmoved. But Sincere wasn't overly disheartened, because she hadn't accepted him, nor had she accepted anyone else's pursuit. It seemed she was naturally disinterested in men. After graduation, he got busy with work, and she continued her studies. Their paths diverged, but he never forgot her. Two seemingly parallel lines suddenly intersected 3 years later because of a blind date. On their first date, Victoria was direct, asking if he had any thoughts about getting married. Although he didn't know why she was in such a hurry, his long-held wish seemed within reach. Sincere was overjoyed, only thinking her family was pushing her. He agreed without a second thought. It wasn't until after they were married that he slowly discovered her secret. It seemed she wasn't disinterested in men in general, rather her heart belonged to someone she was deeply fond of, but who was impossible for her to have. That man's name was Julian Harrison, her best friend's brother. She was 5 years older than him, so she had always treated him like a younger brother. This affection was destined to be one-sided, a dream held by one and reflected by the other. Julian was unaware of her hidden affection. Immediately after graduating, he married his girlfriend of 3 years. Victoria was devastated. In order to quickly recover from the heartbreak, she hastily married Sincere under pressure from her parents. After learning the truth, Sincere was down for a long time, but eventually he pulled himself together. He thought there was plenty of time. As long as he tried hard enough, he could surely make her notice him. But after 3 years of marriage, her attitude towards him was never close. Just as Sincere's confidence was repeatedly chipped away, leaving it shaky, he discovered that photo album. The album contained photos of a young man from the age of 6 to 25. He shouldn't have minded it so much. But what if this person was the man his wife had liked for many years, and the album was still being updated even after their marriage? Sincere couldn't help but harbor resentment. What's more, the very next night, Victoria, who never touched alcohol, got unusually drunk. Her usually cool eyes were brimming with joy, almost overflowing. He found out later that Julian Harrison had gotten a divorce. At that moment, he smiled self-mockingly and decided to end this hopeless marriage for good. Perhaps it was getting the divorce signature, but returning to the home he had lived in for 3 years felt somehow different to Sincere. Looking at this cozy nest he had created with his own hands, many memories flooded his mind. His gaze drifted and finally settled on the wedding photo in the living room, which was always kept meticulously clean. Seeing Victoria's forced smile in the photo again, he found it incredibly jarring. He couldn't help but take the photo down and throw it into the trash can downstairs. He spent the rest of the evening sorting through their marital assets. Victoria noticed the missing wedding photo as soon as she came home. She looked at her husband, who was hunched over writing something, and unusually she asked with a frown, "Where's the wedding photo? The nail was loose. I took it down, worried it might fall and hit someone." Victoria didn't ask any more questions. She placed the takeout she was carrying near his hand and went into the study. Smelling the pungent aroma, Sincere stopped what he was doing, opening the bag and seeing the fiery red takeout inside. He felt a sharp sting in his nose. For 3 years of marriage, he had eaten plain food because of a stomach condition. But his wife had no idea. In the past, to make her happy, he would have eaten it all, no matter how spicy. But now, he would just carry the whole bag downstairs and throw it away. From today onwards, he would discard all the grievances, all the sadness from this marriage, including discarding her. Chapter 2. It was late and Sincere couldn't sleep. He buried his head in his pillow, lost in thought, when a hand suddenly came to rest on his waist. Feeling the warmth from behind him, Sincere instinctively tried to shift away, avoiding her approaching kiss. This act of resistance surprised Victoria. After all, for 3 years of marriage, it had always been Sincere who initiated affection towards her. She had finally felt a spark of intimacy, only to be rejected by him. She couldn't help but ask, "Not feeling well? My stomach hurts. I want to rest." Sincere mumbled a random excuse. Victoria didn't think much of it and simply hummed in response before falling asleep in his arms. Before sleeping, she routinely reviewed her day and suddenly remembered the property contract from earlier. She asked about it. "Where's the property contract? I want to see if there are any loopholes." Sincere's heart pounded. He stared at her steadily. "Do you really want to see it?" Victoria looked at his nervous expression, furrowed her brow slightly, and nodded gently. After a long silence, Sincere got up and went to the study to find the agreement. As he was about to hand it to her, a sudden ringtone sounded. Victoria answered the call first. "Victoria Catherine Thompson is drunk and causing trouble outside again. Please come quickly. I'm so scared remembering Julian Harrison's ex-wife, who was like a crazy woman." Victoria's expression changed. She threw on a jacket and was about to rush over. Seeing her hurried figure, Sincere called out to her, "Is that younger brother who is getting divorced having trouble again?" Victoria was about to say yes, but then worried he might overthink things late at night, so she exaggerated the situation slightly. "Yes, his ex-wife is back, drunk and blocking the way outside with a knife. I need to take a bodyguard to check, otherwise his life might be in danger." Sincere didn't try to keep her, just urged her to be careful. After Victoria left, Sincere didn't close his eyes until daybreak. He picked up his phone to check the time and found that Julian Harrison, whom he had quietly added the other day, had posted a new update on his social media. In the video, a red sun slowly rose from between the mountains, casting a golden glow across the sky. Exclamations came from all directions. The camera panned, and Victoria's figure flickered past. Yesterday's darkness is over. Everything is about to usher in a new life. Looking at the sentence that remained on the screen at the end, Sincere's chest tightened. A dull pain slowly began to spread and intensify. It seemed Julian Harrison had successfully ended his previous marriage. Well, with the help of Victoria, the ace lawyer in law, who had been fond of him for so many years, she likely wouldn't have spared any effort to help him as soon as she heard the word divorce. Since he was single again, it wouldn't be long before Victoria would propose divorce to be with him. Without even asking, Sincere could already imagine the scene. A self-mocking smile appeared on his face, and his heart felt desolate. Divorce was going to happen sooner or later. He was just speeding up the timeline. Instead of passively waiting to be abandoned, choosing to leave proactively would at least allow him to maintain a shred of dignity, wouldn't it? Sincere put down his phone, got up and gathered all the couple-themed items he had bought before, dumping them into cardboard boxes and dragging them downstairs. Victoria, who happened to be returning, saw him struggling and quickly went up to him. "Why are you throwing away so many things?" Sincere lowered his gaze. "I don't use them often. Might as well throw them away so they don't take up space." Victoria nodded understandingly and proactively lifted a box. Watching her receding figure, Sincere's eyes were calm. In fact, if she had just opened the box and looked inside, she would have known that what was about to be discarded were things he had once treasured. With her intellect, she would surely have been able to sense his intention to leave from this unusual behavior. The story could have taken a different turn, but Victoria did nothing. He threw the boxes directly into the trash can and turned around. There were no other extra actions. Chapter 3. In the afternoon, Sincere's computer suddenly crashed. To quickly organize the documents he was working on, he borrowed Victoria's laptop. While waiting for the files to transfer, a new message popped up. He subconsciously clicked on it and saw it was a message from the law firm. "Victoria, we're having a firm dinner tonight. Want to bring your boyfriend?" Seeing this message, Sincere's hand trembled slightly. After 3 years of marriage, Victoria had never publicly revealed their relationship, so in the eyes of others, she remained single. This was why no one recognized him when he went to her law firm for consultation. This time, would she agree? Sincere didn't know, and he didn't dare to hope. Victoria, seeing the message on her phone nearby, instantly looked up at him, as if observing his reaction. Noticing her gaze, Sincere offered a slight smile. "You going to take me to the dinner?" The implication was, after 3 years, would she finally make it public? Victoria didn't know how to answer. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. This instant of silence felt like a blade piercing Sincere's heart, bringing a dull ache. He forced himself to suppress the pain, putting on an indifferent expression and trying to sound casual. "I have plans tonight. Even if you wanted to take me, I probably wouldn't have time." The tension in Victoria's heart eased, and her expression returned to normal. "Well, maybe next time there's an opportunity, I'll take you." Sincere didn't reply. He raised his hand to cover his eyes and silently answered her in his heart. "Next time? Victoria, there won't be a next time." That evening, Victoria went to the dinner alone. As soon as she entered, she was cornered by a few colleagues who had already had a bit to drink. 3 years and we've never seen you bring a boyfriend. Victoria, that's just not right. Let us bros see our brother. Your guy, how long are you planning to keep him hidden away?" Under the urging of her colleagues, Victoria opened her phone. She had 2 options, Julian Harrison or Sincere Clark. After hesitating for a long time, she finally clicked on Julian's profile picture and sent him a message. Not long after, Julian arrived, following the address. The moment he pushed open the door, everyone in the room's eyes lit up, and they became excited, praising her choice. After a few rounds of drinks, Lawyer Smith needed the restroom. He handed a file bag to Victoria, entrusting her to take it downstairs and give it to a gentleman. It was a simple favor, so she naturally didn't refuse. She took the number and went downstairs, glancing at the documents inside the file. After waiting and waiting without seeing anyone, she picked up her phone and entered the number, only to find that it was saved in her contacts. As the name Sincere appeared on the screen, Victoria froze. She took the agreement out of the file bag and was about to open it for a closer look when a blinding car headlight shone over. She lifted her hand to partially block the light as she looked up. Upon seeing Sincere Clark's figure, suspicion dawned on her. She held up the document in her hand and questioned him. Divorce Property Division Agreement? Sincere Clark, what is the meaning of this? Sincere was also surprised to be caught red-handed, but he lied calmly. It's George Miller who's getting a divorce. I helped him set up the appointment with Lawyer Smith. Her intuition told Victoria that things weren't as simple as he claimed. She furrowed her brow and was about to open the agreement to investigate when a hand reached out from behind her and linked with Julian Harrison's arm.
Victoria, weren't you going to meet a client? Why did it take you so long to come back?
Seeing Julian leaning affectionately towards her, Victoria immediately became flustered and unsure what to do. She didn't dare to look at her husband's expression and didn't know how to explain. But even more than explaining, she didn't want to push away Julian, who was actively approaching her at that moment. Sincere, however, was calmer and more composed than she expected. He took 2 steps forward, took the agreement from her hand, bent his head slightly, and spoke with a detached tone. Thank you, Lawyer Bellwether. My friend and I are busy handling the divorce matters, so we won't disturb you. Chapter 4. The night wind blew through the car window, making his hair fly. All the way, Sincere's mind kept replaying the scene of Julian Harrison appearing beside Victoria. Perhaps having been hurt too many times, he no longer felt heartache at this point, only endless exhaustion. Was the 30-day cooling-off period really such a long time? He rubbed his aching eyes and, without paying attention, failed to see the car in front of him illegally reversing. He crashed directly into it. After a loud crash, his leg was trapped by the deformed car door, bleeding profusely. Instantly, the color drained from his face and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Despite the intense pain, he remained rational and called for an ambulance. After entering the emergency room, the doctor examined him. The injury wasn't life-threatening, but a minor surgery was needed. They told him to contact his family. Sincere's parents lived in another state, so he called Victoria, but she didn't answer any of his more than 10 calls. He thought that she was likely enjoying herself somewhere now, accompanied by colleagues and friends, with the one she held a candle for by her side, probably drinking wine and talking about life to their heart's content. How could she possibly have time to answer his calls? The nurse standing nearby saw that he couldn't reach anyone and spoke up. Sir, can your wife truly not come? Sincere shook his head, his tone quite detached. We're already divorced. It'll be completely over in just over 10 days. The nurse hadn't expected this and looked startled. But you're still legally married, aren't you? Surely she can come to sign a form at least. Remembering the 3 years of their marriage, Sincere felt a flood of emotions. To share a meal with her, he had waited up until late night countless times, only to be told she had to work late and wouldn't be coming home. To find common ground with her, he studied law, only to be completely discouraged by her comment that he was just an outsider. To make her happy, he specially planned a birthday surprise, only to be told she was tired and had no energy. From beginning to end, he was the only one holding on to this relationship out of unrequited love. Every single thing was proof that she hadn't loved him. Victoria wouldn't come. Sincere could no longer deceive himself. A wife who can't be reached when her husband is in a car accident. What would be the point of her coming? The nurse sighed after hearing this, her eyes filled with sympathy. Then call a friend for the next few days. George Miller was the one who took care of Sincere. Victoria only received the news and rushed to the hospital 4 or 5 days later. As soon as she entered and saw the wound on his ankle, a look of confusion appeared on her face. "You were in a car accident. Why didn't you tell me?" Sincere was about to explain, but looking up and seeing her expression, he inexplicably recalled those dozen phone calls. He swallowed the words caught in his throat and offered a slight smile. "You were busy. It's just a minor injury. I didn't want to bother you." Hearing him say this, a hint of guilt arose in Victoria, and she decided to explain what happened a few days ago properly. "Sincere, that day Julian and I just happened to meet. Don't overthink it. Has his divorce process been completed?" Hearing him ask such a question out of the blue, a flicker of surprise crossed Victoria's eyes, but she answered honestly.
"Yes, it's done. They're divorced now."
The smile on Sincere's face grew wider. He murmured, "Then congratulations. I hope I can be just as smooth." Victoria didn't understand what he meant. As she was about to ask, her phone rang again. Seeing who was calling, she hesitated for a moment before going out to the corridor to answer. When she came back half an hour later, she found the hospital room door slightly open, and Sincere's voice coming from inside. "Yes, let's wait until the divorce cooling-off period is over. There are still 15 days. Then I can be completely free." The property division agreement suddenly flashed in her mind. Remembering his cryptic remark just now, Victoria's heart skipped a few beats. She pushed the door open directly. "Divorce cooling-off period? Who's getting divorced?" Chapter 5. Sincere hadn't expected her to come back at all. Fortunately, George Miller arrived just then. He forced down his panicked expression and pointed towards him. "George Miller, she's getting a divorce." George Miller glanced at the two of them, immediately understanding and nodding along. Yes, I'm planning to get a divorce. The process is already underway." Victoria wasn't particularly close to Sincere, so she didn't have much interaction with his friends. Although she had met George Miller twice, she didn't know much about his personal life. Hearing this, she frowned. "If you're getting a divorce, why didn't you come to me first?" George Miller couldn't come up with a convincing lie and stammered nervously. Seeing this, Sincere quickly took over. "You were busy with your brother's divorce case during that time, so I was afraid you'd be too overwhelmed and didn't want to bother you." As soon as he mentioned Julian Harrison, Victoria felt uneasy and didn't press the matter further. "Well, if you have any issues later, you can come to me." Although he had covered it up with a few words, Sincere didn't feel relieved. With Victoria's professional habit and sharp intuition, she shouldn't have missed the unusual aspects behind this string of events. But as soon as Julian Harrison became involved, she seemed to lose all reason and judgment, pushing everything else aside and ignoring it. They say love is blind, and Sincere finally understood what that meant. He watched Victoria's fingers moving quickly on her phone, looking restless, and counted down in his mind how soon she would leave. Counting down from 10 to 1, she indeed got up and found an excuse, preparing to leave. "Sincere, something came up at the law firm. I need to go take care of it. What day will you be discharged? I'll come pick you up." Sincere knew she was lying, but he didn't care anymore. 5 days from now. On the day he was discharged, Sincere waited from morning till evening but didn't see Victoria. Opening his social media and seeing Julian Harrison's swimming photos from the beach, he seemed to have anticipated something and gave her a call. Before he even spoke, the sound of waves crashing in the background from her phone completely gave everything away. But Victoria seemed oblivious and still made an excuse. "Sincere, I'm on a business trip out of town right now. Is something wrong?" She had indeed forgotten about picking him up from the hospital. No matter how many times, Julian Harrison was always more important, and he was always her second choice, the one she pursued but couldn't fully have. Fortunately, he had woken up. He no longer wanted to stand in the background foolishly waiting for her. Sincere didn't remind her or expose her lie. He just asked a couple of casual questions like usual. "When did you go? How many days will you be there?" "I got here the day before yesterday. I should be back tomorrow." Sincere hummed in response, casually told her to take care of herself, and then hung up. After calling a car for himself, he stood by the roadside, pulled out his calendar, and counted the days until the divorce. 10 days. 10 more days, and he would be completely free. Then the sky would be vast and the earth wide, and he would be free and unfettered. Being left alone on his discharge date. What's a small matter like that? There was no need to dwell on it anymore. Chapter 6. After returning home, Sincere initially wanted to speed up the moving process. However, his leg injury hadn't fully healed, and moving around was inconvenient, so he called a moving company for service. Cardboard boxes of all sizes were piled high in the living room. Several workers were busy packing and carrying things in and out, leaving the front door wide open. When Victoria arrived home and saw the chaotic scene, she quickly asked what was happening. Sincere presented the explanation he had prepared. The apartment in Parkview is ready. It's close to your office, so let's move there. It will be more convenient. Remembering the property agreement she had signed last time, Victoria nodded. After changing her shoes, she walked to the sofa and sat down. As she mentally recalled the layout of that apartment, she chatted with him casually. You like to grow plants, right? How about we clear out the balcony on the east side for planting flowers? After a few seconds of silence, Sincere spoke quietly. No need. I've given up that hobby. Victoria subconsciously looked at the vase of fresh lilies on the table and felt that he wasn't telling the truth. Just as she was about to encourage him further, she suddenly noticed the boxes the workers were carrying out seemed to be filled mostly with her things. She couldn't help but change the subject. Why are they only moving my things? Where are yours? They've all been moved. Hearing him answer so quickly, Victoria thought he meant his things had already been moved to the new place, so she didn't ask further. She got up to pour a glass of water and casually gave a few instructions. Please make sure to label all the items clearly and don't put them in the wrong rooms once you deliver them. Sincere looked at her quietly, his eyes shifting slightly, and he swallowed some words he wanted to say. There wouldn't be any mistakes, because in the new place, only your things will be there. After everything was sorted, Victoria helped Sincere down the stairs first. Stepping out of the elevator, the two of them ran straight into Julian and Isabel Harrison, brother and sister. Both parties froze for a moment. Victoria hadn't expected this situation. A hint of panic flashed in her eyes. She let go of his hand and took 2 steps forward to stand in front of him. What are you doing here? Julian raised an eyebrow. Isabel said she wanted to check out your new place, and I haven't been either, so I got the address from your parents, planning to surprise you. Julian's gaze, however, remained fixed on Sincere. If he remembered correctly, he should have met this gentleman at least twice already, once at the law firm and once outside the bar. A strong sixth sense made him can't help but wonder about his identity, so he smiled and probed him a little. Victoria, who is this gentleman? Victoria was unusually silent, seeming to ponder how to introduce him. Sincere's face was calm and unperturbed. He even extended a hand to Julian in a friendly manner. Sincere Clark, a college classmate of Lawyer Bellwether. I'm getting a divorce recently, so I came to ask an old classmate for some help. I didn't expect her to be moving. What a coincidence. His words enlightened Victoria. She first glanced at Sincere with a hint of guilt, then followed his lead, introducing everyone. Although everything seemed normal, Julian still felt some doubt. But with so many people around, he didn't feel it was appropriate to ask more questions and urged his sister to help with the move. Julian then walked over to Sincere and started chatting with him. Sincere, why are you getting divorced? Sincere hadn't expected him to be so casually friendly. He froze for a few seconds, then smiled gently. My wife likes someone else. Chapter 7. Hearing that he had a similar experience, Julian Harrison immediately felt sympathetic and couldn't help but offer comfort. Mine's about the same, but it's okay. Once you're divorced, everything will get better. Victoria will definitely help you through this difficult time. Yes, the hardest part, getting the signature, she had indeed helped with. Sincere nodded, acknowledging his words. I heard she handled your case too. She must have put a lot of effort into it. A shy expression appeared on Julian's face, and his voice lightened up. Yeah, Victoria was a huge help. She helped me gather evidence to sue my ex-wife while also staying by my side to protect my safety. If she hadn't stepped forward with a bodyguard, I might have already died by my ex-wife's crazy hag's knife. Seeing him sweetly reminisce about these unpleasant past events, Sincere was stunned for a moment and blurted out a somewhat inappropriate question. Do you like Victoria Bellwether? Upon hearing this question, Julian froze completely. He struggled for a long time before hesitantly answering. I don't know. At first, I only saw her as a sister. Since childhood, she'd often take me out to play, look after me in every way, and buy me lots of gifts. In school, if anyone bullied me, she'd step in to argue and fight for me, even getting herself hurt. When she heard I was getting divorced, she proactively contacted me and offered to help. It wasn't until later that my sister told me Victoria has actually liked me secretly for a long time. She's such a cool, distant goddess, yet she also played the role of a secret admirer. I have no idea how she ended up liking me. Listening to him ramble on about these past events, Sincere felt a complex mix of emotions. From Julian's words, he came to know a Victoria who was completely different from the one in his impression. So she wasn't naturally cold, she just didn't like him. She wasn't passive about everything, he just wasn't the person who could motivate her. It was just a shame he had fallen so deep and understood so late, wasting so many years on her. Julian, lost in his memories, didn't notice Sincere's meaningful expression. After this conversation, he already regarded Sincere as a trustworthy friend. He mustered the courage to slowly voice the question that had been troubling him for a long time to this man he had only met a few times. Sincere, what do you think of Victoria? Sincere understood what Julian meant in his words. He looked up at the house that was about to be emptied and honestly stated his thoughts. I've known her for 10 years, but it wasn't until recently, interacting with her, that I realized I didn't understand her at all. So, I'm probably not qualified to tell you what kind of person she is, but I can tell you this, it's the first time I've ever seen her like someone so much. Julian nodded thoughtfully, his heart feeling a little more settled. Seeing the sun beginning to set, indicating evening was approaching, he pulled Sincere along, suggesting they have dinner together during the gathering. Victoria, who was just coming downstairs, froze again when she heard this, her face clearly showing her reluctance. Seeing her expression, Sincere curved his lips into a slight smile and declined Julian's invitation. I have something planned for tonight. I won't keep you. Victoria didn't give the brother and sister a chance to react. She took Sincere's arm and helped him into the car. You guys go first. I'll drop him off at home and then meet you. The moving truck followed the car out of the complex. Victoria's heart pounded in sync with the traffic lights on the street. She brainstormed frantically, trying to find a reasonable explanation. Sincere was the first to break the awkward silence, his tone flat. No need to be so nervous. We agreed before we got married, didn't we? To keep our marriage a secret from everyone except our parents until both of us felt ready to make it public. You're not ready now, I understand. Victoria's anxious heart slowly calmed down under his soft tone. She took a deep breath, her voice tinged with gratitude. Thank you for understanding. Actually, I'm gradually coming to terms with being married. Give me a little more time and I'll definitely make it public. Sincere hummed almost inaudibly twice and turned to look out the window. They had been married for 3 years and it hadn't been made public. Now she wanted more time. But he didn't want to wait anymore. Who had so much time in life to waste? He was tired. Chapter 8. All the way, Sincere remained silent, not saying a word. Victoria constantly felt that his mood had been low recently, but she couldn't find a reason why. She spent the time going over everything that had happened during this period. Finally, she concluded that she had been neglecting him because she was busy with Julian Harrison's case, which was why he seemed so dispirited. A twinge of guilt surfaced in her heart. She unusually took the initiative to make a suggestion. Our 3rd wedding anniversary is coming up soon. How about I take you on a trip to relax? The divorce cooling-off period had only a few days left. Sincere didn't want to make things complicated, so he refused, using his injury as an excuse. Victoria thought about it and agreed that it wasn't suitable, so she suggested several other ways to celebrate, asking him to choose. As she listed them, Sincere always found an excuse, finally rejecting all of them. He seemed to have no desire to celebrate. His indifferent demeanor was completely different from his previous excitement whenever they talked about dates, which immediately made Victoria feel suspicious. Seeing the perplexed look on her face, Sincere also worried that she might notice something amiss. He suggested one option. That day is a weekend. How about you accompany me back to our alma mater for a visit? Why the sudden nostalgia? Victoria couldn't guess his thoughts, but didn't want to spoil his mood, so she nodded in agreement. The car fell silent again. Sincere pulled out his calendar, looking at the 2 dates close together. September 7th was marked with the words divorce, and September 6th happened to be their wedding anniversary, and exactly 10 years since he had first developed a crush on her. Revisiting that place on such a special day, could it be considered bringing things full circle? Just let it be a perfect ending to 10 years of his youth. Thinking this, a hint of a smile appeared on Sincere's face again. His tone lightened, almost sounding like he was joking. This time, you won't stand me up, will you? A rare smile appeared in her eyes. When have I ever stood you up? Sincere, don't accuse me unfairly. Sincere smiled and didn't reply, merely counting quietly in his mind. Last time, you left me at the hospital to go to the beach with Julian Harrison. The time before that, you completely forgot about the birthday dinner you promised me because you were helping him gather evidence. The time before that, you left me alone in the suburbs to rush to comfort him. Time after time, whenever Julian Harrison was concerned, you stood me up. Victoria didn't come back for the next week. The first thing Sincere did each morning was tear off the page from the wall calendar. He stayed alone in the empty old house, slowly clearing out the last of his belongings. Time passed quickly, and soon it was September 6th. He woke up early, did his hair, picked out an old-fashioned white shirt from a few years ago to wear, and went downstairs with his camera, intending to capture some moments on this memorable day. Victoria was already waiting downstairs, diligently opening the car door for him. Perhaps knowing that he would soon be free, Sincere was in a cheerful mood. He spoke to her about many old college stories. They chatted back and forth, thoroughly enjoying the conversation. Victoria gradually relaxed as well, and spontaneously offered to take more photos for him later. Chatting and laughing, they soon arrived at the entrance of S University. Sincere got out first, leaning against the window, waiting for her. Victoria had just unbuckled her seatbelt when her phone chimed a few times. She clicked it open and saw a message from Julian Harrison. Victoria, are you free? I have a fever. Could you come take me to the hospital? Upon seeing the word fever, Victoria's movements paused. Sincere, seeing that she wasn't getting out of the car, turned his head to see what was wrong and happened to catch her hesitant expression. In just a moment, she made her decision. Sincere, something came up at the law firm. I have to go there. Sincere was stunned, a hint of surprise flashing in his eyes. Could you go an hour later? He understood immediately. She was lying, likely for Julian Harrison's sake again. It's important. I'm afraid I can't. Seeing her sound so certain, Sincere didn't expose her lie. He simply looked at her deeply and let her leave. Victoria buckled her seatbelt again. To express her apology, she made a new promise. You take a taxi home first. After I'm done with this in a few days, I'll bring you back here for a visit. We can also invite some professors for dinner later. Sincere didn't accept this promise. Victoria, there won't be a later. He tilted his head back, watching her car driven away out of sight. Then, carrying his camera, he entered the campus alone. In just half an hour, he had walked through all the places related to his youth and unrequited love. After taking all the photos, he went nowhere else. He hailed a taxi and went home. A little red dot appeared on his social media again. He clicked it open casually. Upon refreshing, it was a photo of Julian Harrison at a hospital. Chapter 9. At this moment, he finally knew for sure. She truly hadn't gone to work late. She had gone to take care of a sick Julian Harrison. Remembering Victoria's solemn tone that evening, Sincere smiled. For him, she wasn't even willing to spare half an hour. "Victoria, if you knew that these few hours were the last time we would spend together, would you regret having stood me up again?" No one answered him, and he no longer cared about the answer. He just glanced at it, then backed out and found Lawyer Smith's messaging contact. "Lawyer Smith, today is the last day of the divorce cooling-off period. Do I still need to come to the firm to process any paperwork with you?" Lawyer Smith's reply came quickly. "No need. Mr. Clark, since your divorce cooling-off period has reached its final day, the entire process is now complete. Congratulations on your new lease on life." A new lease on life. A perfect description. Yes, starting today, from no longer loving Victoria, from no longer wanting Victoria, his life, Sincere Clark's life, would be even more brilliant and vibrant. Thinking this, he felt a sudden sense of clarity and turned to go home. With 3 hours left before midnight, he threw out the last remaining items that belonged to him in the house. Then, he lay alone on the sofa, watching the sunset. With 2 hours left, he took out his laptop and edited the photos he took today into a video. With 1 hour left, the video editing was complete. After watching it once, he picked up the camera again, pointed it at himself and pressed the record button. He was going to record a farewell letter from him to Victoria. Finally, the entire video was finished. He put the memory card back into the camera, then found the divorce agreement and placed them together on the nightstand in the bedroom. "Victoria Bellwether, from this moment on we are divorced. Congratulations to you and congratulations to me." After doing all this, he picked up his last piece of luggage and left this house, left this city. No one knew where he was going, but he left decisively, without lingering, without looking back. Meanwhile, elsewhere, it wasn't until Julian Harrison had mostly recovered from his illness that Victoria finally left his place. She was driving and calling Sincere, wanting to keep their last promise. But after calling more than 10 times, her phone kept giving the phone as off notification, and her messages received no reply. In 3 years of marriage, this was the first time Victoria couldn't get in touch with him. Connecting this to the previous car accident, she couldn't help but worry. She turned around and drove home. All the items in the new house were arranged according to the original layout. They were no longer messy and piled up. But after just one glance, Victoria noticed something was wrong. Sincere Clark's things. How come none of them were visible? Realizing this, her heart skipped a few beats. She rushed back to the old house in a hurry. The entire house was empty. She searched everywhere, inside and out, but saw no sign of anyone. It wasn't until she finally entered the bedroom that she saw a camera and a stack of documents on the nightstand. Remembering how happy he looked carrying the camera a few days ago, Victoria temporarily felt a sense of relief. She pressed the power button, wanting to see what he had filmed. A video popped up with cheerful music showing recordings of various scenes from S University. Every now and then, a large block of text would flash on the screen. As she watched, she almost pressed pause. "Victoria Bellwether, the plaza still has many students skateboarding. I remember the first time I confessed to you was right here. You gently rejected me back then, and I went home and cried all night. Victoria Bellwether, the library is still as packed as ever. I didn't want to disturb anyone, so I could only take a picture from afar. This spot is familiar, isn't it? It used to be your favorite place. Victoria Bellwether, this is the road you often took home, and I was here too, secretly following you for 4 years. Watching scene after scene, Victoria felt as if she had returned to those carefree, youthful years 6 years ago. Remembering that time again, and remembering the Sincere Clark who was pursuing her from behind back then, a smile unconsciously curved on her lips. The music ended, but the video still had another minute left. She thought it was a secret surprise and couldn't help but look around, but she didn't see Sincere. Filled with confusion, she pressed the play button. After a few black frames, Sincere's face appeared in the center of the screen. Seeing his red eyes and tired face, a bad feeling suddenly rose in Victoria's heart. Victoria Bellwether, this year marks the 10th year since we met, and also the 10th year I've had a crush on you. It's hard to believe, isn't it? The time I've liked you has been so long it needs to be measured in decades. Frankly, it's hard for me to believe it too. After all, how many 10-year periods does one have in life? For 10 years, 7 were unrequited love and 3 were marriage. I wanted to enter your heart every single moment and put in a lot of effort towards that. But how can things always go as I wish? Not liking someone is just not liking them. Even after another 3 years, 7 years, or 10 years, the fact that you don't like me is something I cannot change. So on this significant day, I have made an important decision to let go of this obsession and to fulfill your genuine feelings for Julian Harrison. So when you see this recording, I just want to tell you, no, I should say notify you of something. Victoria Bellwether, we are divorced.
Chapter 10. A month ago, I signed, and you signed too.
So, from today onward, we are both free. I'm leaving. Don't look for me. I wish you and Julian Harrison a happy ending, and may my future life be uninhibited and vibrant. Every word, like a spring thunderbolt, exploded in Victoria's ears. She couldn't believe what she had heard. Her pupils dilated to the extreme, and her lips trembled uncontrollably. What did he mean? She signed. He signed, and they were already divorced. When did she sign? The camera in her hand clattered to the floor, knocking over a folder on the table which hit her leg. The words divorce agreement were starkly inverted in her vision. She quickly picked it up, flipping directly to the last page. At a glance, she saw Sincere Clark's signature, and in the signature box to the left, just a few centimeters away, another name was signed. She was incredibly familiar with this handwriting. Because it was signed by her own hand, 3 flowing characters, Victoria Bellwether in an instant, many details that Victoria had previously overlooked flooded her mind. That time they met at the law firm, Sincere said he came to get her signature, but he had come down from upstairs, and Lawyer Smith's office was on the 2nd floor. That time Lawyer Smith asked her to deliver the property division agreement. When he saw her appear, a hint of panic had flashed across his face. All the things that had gone missing from their home during this past month belonged to him. Connecting this to the layout of the new house, Victoria could almost confirm that all of this was his deliberate doing. He had spun a colossal lie right under her nose, silently tricking her into signing the divorce agreement, and then left alone. After sorting out the sequence of events, anger and panic simultaneously surged in Victoria's heart. She grabbed the agreement and the camera and sprinted downstairs, driving straight to the law firm. She stormed into the 2nd floor office and slapped the divorce agreement onto Lawyer Smith's desk. This consent divorce case, did you handle it, Lawyer Smith? Chapter 11. Seeing how anxious she was, Lawyer Smith hastily put down his teacup, picked up the stack of files and flipped through them. Yes, I handled it. What's wrong? Victoria's anger reached its peak at this moment. Having lost her rationality, she completely disregarded their colleague relationship and yelled, Sincere Clark's case, why didn't you tell me beforehand? Lawyer Smith had no idea what was happening and was completely confused. This case followed procedure. It's already been submitted for review. There was no problem with it. Why would I need to tell you beforehand? It concerns me. Why didn't you tell me? Listening to her accusation, Lawyer Smith's mouth dropped open in surprise. He quickly flipped to the last page to look at the name of the female party. Victoria Bellwether. Victoria Bellwether? Mr. Sincere Clark's wife is Victoria Bellwether? Victoria was married? Wasn't she single? Victoria's mind was shrouded in layers of doubt, and his expression changed in an instant. I didn't know Mr. Sincere Clark was your husband. Aren't you single? This remark was like cold water, completely extinguishing Victoria's blazing anger. As her mind cleared, she realized her behavior just now and quickly bowed in apology. Lawyer Smith didn't dwell on it. Instead, he took her hand and earnestly asked for an explanation. But Victoria was anxious to find Sincere's whereabouts and wasn't in the mood to explain to him. "Lawyer Smith, I'll tell you the whole story another time. Could you please give me Sincere's contact information? I can't reach him right now. As his lawyer, you must be able to contact him." Before Sincere left, he had indeed left a phone number and address. But as a seasoned professional with many years of experience, Lawyer Smith firmly refused. "Victoria, you're in this line of work too. Illegally divulging clients' information is against the law. Don't put me in a difficult position. Mr. Clark is your husband after all. If you just think about it carefully, you should be able to reach him. Don't rush, look slowly. He's been emotionally stable recently, nothing bad will happen." Lawyer Smith underestimated Victoria's capability. Chapter 12. Although they had been married for 3 years, she didn't have any contact information for Sincere Clark's family or friends. She couldn't even reach his parents and didn't even know where his hometown was. She genuinely couldn't reach him, so she tried her best to persuade Lawyer Smith with heartfelt words, hoping to appeal to his emotions. But no matter how much she pleaded, Lawyer Smith would only say, "No comment." Victoria had no other option. She could only ask for something less, writing a letter for him to forward to Sincere. At the end of the day, Lawyer Smith sent her a message saying Mr. Clark had seen it but didn't reply. Victoria quickly opened her messaging app and tried to send Sincere a message, only to find his profile picture grayed out, showing this user has unregistered their account. To completely cut ties with her after the divorce, had he really gone to such lengths? In their 10th year of acquaintance, Victoria suddenly felt a sense that she was meeting Sincere Clark for the first time. After leaving Capitol Harbor, Sincere went to the train station, picked a place on the map at random, bought a train ticket, and began his first trip after the divorce. In one day, traveling from north to south, the temperature gradually rose, and the air became humid. He carried his luggage and arrived in a completely unfamiliar city, River City. Unlike the fast-paced life in Capitol Harbor, everything in the small city slowed down. He stored his luggage at the hotel and started a leisurely wander. He ordered a bowl of noodles, sat on the bustling street, and drank a cold beverage, feeling utterly relaxed. His phone chimed. In his new messaging app account, he had only a few contacts. He opened it and saw 2 messages from Lawyer Smith. "Brother-in-law, why didn't you clarify your identity with me when you wanted to get a divorce? Oh, what a mess this has caused. When I didn't give Victoria your contact, she was quite unhappy with me. She wrote a letter asking me to forward it to you. Take a look when you have a chance." Chapter 13. Sincere Clark had anticipated Victoria Bellwether would be upset, but that she would also write a letter truly surprised him. He clicked open the document and saw it was a lengthy piece. His gaze immediately settled on the word count. 8,000 words. Just getting a divorce, and she wrote 8,000 words? Was it necessary? Surely it wasn't all just accusations against him. But Sincere, having successfully escaped the confines of marriage, was in high spirits and didn't want to read anything that would spoil his mood. With this thought, he closed the document directly, muted his phone, and slurped the noodles that had just arrived. After eating, he wandered through the night market, snacking and browsing. The complex emotions that had been weighing on his heart turned into appetite and dissipated. Upon returning to the hotel that night, he first sent a thank you message to Lawyer Smith, then sent back a document. Upon receiving the document, Victoria's tense heart finally relaxed a little. She opened it with anticipation, only to freeze immediately. Too long, didn't read, divorced, do not disturb. Just 2 simple lines of text created waves of immense pain in her heart that had just settled. Her fingers flew across the screen, typing out another long paragraph she wanted to send. But recalling the phrase too long, she could only vent her frustration by repeatedly pressing the delete key. Finally, her patience ran out completely. She threw her phone onto the bed, collapsed weakly to the floor, and closed her tired eyes. The chaotic scenes from that video began flashing in her mind again, one by one. She reached out and picked up the camera from the table. She clicked playback, fast-forwarded to the end, watched it several times repeatedly, and finally paused on the frame with Julian Harrison. 36 hours after Sincere Clark left, Victoria Bellwether finally found out why she had been divorced. So, he had known about the situation between her and Julian Harrison? As this thought surfaced, Victoria's heart skipped a few beats. A feeling of unprecedented panic swept over her. Chapter 14. She desperately held her head in her hands, trying to pinpoint where things had gone wrong. Past events flooded back, finally stopping at the day of the move. While she and Isabel Harrison were running up and down the stairs, Julian Harrison and Sincere Clark seemed to have had some time alone. But looking back, that day was the 9th day of the divorce cooling-off period. Even if he had accidentally learned something, he wouldn't have predicted everything beforehand. The cause of everything must have originated from the time they met at the law firm, and he lied about it being a property agreement to get her signature. Recalling what had happened the day before, Victoria's face instantly turned very pale. Knowing that Sincere Clark had accidentally discovered that photo album, Victoria Bellwether couldn't sleep all night. All night her mind replayed the events of the past few years. If the first decade had been spent chasing Julian Harrison, then these 3 years since his marriage had been about learning to let go of him. From the moment he married his ex-wife, she decided to only view him as a younger brother going forward. As for Sincere Clark, who had been pursuing her all this time, Victoria initially only saw him as a friend. Perhaps because she felt the same pain of unrequited love, she always felt a sense of guilt towards him. This guilt also extended for many years, until the two of them reconnected 3 years ago. At the first sight of him again, she knew he hadn't moved on from her. So, for a long time after being pressured to marry, she kept pondering the same thing. Should she listen to her parents and be with someone unfamiliar from a blind date? Or should she accept Sincere Clark and give him a chance? In the end, she thought that if she married him, at least he wouldn't suffer as much as she did. Young Victoria Bellwether thought fulfilling his wish would alleviate the despair of unrequited love. But she didn't know then that getting something one didn't truly desire was sometimes a more unbearable outcome than unrequited love. And fulfilling someone's wish wasn't an easy task either. Chapter 15. On one side was the painful abyss of what had already been lost, and on the other was the cage of marriage she was about to step into. She ran back and forth between the two, feeling as if she was being torn in two. In a state close to breakdown, she proposed the idea of a secret marriage. Sincere Clark agreed without a second thought. Victoria Bellwether got married in a state of confusion, unsure how to move on from someone and how to manage a marriage. For 3 years after their marriage, she and Julian Harrison rarely contacted each other, only seeing each other at occasional gatherings. All those photos taken with many people were placed in that album. In the mundane reality of day-to-day life, she was slowly learning to let go of that obsession. But letting go was not an easy thing. Years of habit made her gaze unconsciously settle on him, and her emotions would be uncontrollably affected by him. Especially after learning about his divorce, she desperately wished him to escape his misery and start a new life, which was why she helped him so wholeheartedly. He was, after all, someone she had genuinely loved. Even if she knew there was no possibility of being together, she still wished for his life to be smooth and happy. But all of this was just in Victoria Bellwether's mind. She had never spoken to anyone about it. They say a secret crush is a solitary affair. She thought she had hidden it well, but she forgot that Sincere Clark also had a crush on her, so he could easily see through her thoughts. She only understood after losing him that she had revealed herself long ago. And when the truth came out, her anger wasn't solely because she was tricked into a divorce. She was angry that he had pronounced judgment on her without even asking. Angry that he had left so absolutely without saying goodbye. Angry that he didn't even give her a chance to explain. She was also angry with herself for not noticing the abnormalities sooner. Angry with herself for habitually neglecting him. Angry with herself for not fulfilling her duties as a wife. Even more, she was angry with herself for not seeing the true position Sincere Clark held in her heart sooner. 3 years, over 1,000 days and nights spent together. She had long grown accustomed to his presence by her side. Even when Julian Harrison got divorced, she had never once considered ending their marriage. Because from the day she received their marriage certificate, she had decided on one thing: to walk through life hand in hand with Sincere Clark. Chapter 16. On the 3rd day after Sincere Clark left, Victoria Bellwether tried every possible way but still couldn't reach him. Time kept flowing, and the panic in her heart grew heavier day by day. Julian Harrison had tried to contact her many times these past few days, but she had turned him down every time. So, when he showed up at her door and saw her looking exhausted and worn out, he was shocked, his eyes filled with concern. "Victoria, what happened?" Now, seeing Julian Harrison standing in front of her, Victoria's emotions were incredibly complex. She had already transformed her romantic feelings for him into kinship, but she hadn't found the right opportunity to say so. However, after Sincere Clark left because he misunderstood their relationship, she couldn't delay any longer. She had to find a way to explain everything clearly. "Julian, I've been trying to get in touch with Sincere." "With Sincere? What's wrong with him?" Seeing the tension appear on Julian Harrison's face, Victoria felt even more ashamed. "He's disappeared. I can't find him." "Huh? Why would he suddenly disappear? Is it because of the divorce? Is it related to his ex-wife?" "It's because of the divorce, and it's related to his ex-wife. More accurately, it's related to me." Julian Harrison became even more confused. Seeing the look of bewilderment on his face, Victoria mustered her courage and confessed, "I am Sincere Clark's ex-wife. We got married 3 years ago. I've kept it a secret from you all these years." "I'm sorry, Julian." This news hit Julian Harrison like a heavy hammer. He instantly froze in place. So, those strange sixth senses that had caught his attention before weren't wrong after all. Understanding dawned on him, but he still couldn't accept the reality and questioned her in shock. "Why did you keep it a secret? Was that fair to Sincere?" Victoria was left speechless, unsure how to explain the complex emotions in her heart. This silence, however, made Julian Harrison's emotions even more agitated. He recalled the conversation he had with Sincere Clark last time, his heart filled with guilt and regret. If he had known earlier that Sincere Clark's wife was Victoria Bellwether, he would have completely eliminated any inappropriate thoughts and certainly wouldn't have mentioned those things in front of him. Realizing that he had inadvertently become an accelerant in the breakdown of their marriage, even if it was unintentional, Julian Harrison felt incredibly pained. "The person you should be apologizing to isn't me, it's Sincere, I know. But he disappeared after the divorce. I can't find him at all." Hearing this, Julian Harrison immediately knew that Sincere Clark had completely given up hope, and his heart ached even more. No one understood Sincere Clark's feelings better than he did. A person can't just disappear without a trace. If you have no way to contact Sincere, it only proves that you never truly cared about him. Those words exposed the raw truth, causing a sharp pain in Victoria Bellwether's chest. She lowered her head in defeat, her nose stinging with the urge to cry. "I failed him these past 3 years. I ignored his efforts and overlooked his feelings." By the end of her sentence, her voice was close to a sob. Julian Harrison was also left speechless. He quietly turned around and left with heavy steps. Watching his retreating figure, the sorrow and regret in Victoria's heart grew even stronger. That things had come to this point was entirely her fault, yet she had dragged 2 innocent people into it. She felt deeply ashamed and filled with remorse. Chapter 17. On the 7th day since Sincere Clark left, Victoria Bellwether was nearly pushed to the brink. With a sheer drop behind her, leaving no room to retreat, she finally regained her composure. Although the divorce cooling-off period had ended, the procedures were not yet completely finalized. Whether it was getting the divorce certificate or filing for a contested divorce, Sincere Clark would have to return. With this realization, Victoria Bellwether, who had been lost in despair for days, rallied herself. She applied to end her leave, and the first thing she did upon returning to the law firm was to seek out Lawyer Smith. Over the past few days, Lawyer Smith had forwarded countless messages for her. Seeing her looking so thin and weary, he couldn't help but feel somewhat sympathetic. Just as he was about to offer comfort, she spoke first, her tone regaining its composure. "Lawyer Smith, please tell him that I agree to the divorce. Ask him to come back and get the divorce certificate." Hearing this, Lawyer Smith nearly spat out his tea. "You agree just like that? Aren't you going to try and salvage it? It's been 3 years of marriage he refuses to communicate with me. What else can I do? I can only grant him his wish. It's not like I can drag it to court." Lawyer Smith sighed with regret, shaking his head helplessly. "In that case, I will inform Mr. Clark." "Victoria, don't be too upset." Victoria said nothing more and returned to her office. Leaning back in her chair, her tense body finally relaxed a little. Her mind was already planning the next steps. In truth, she had no intention of getting a divorce at all. Her words to Lawyer Smith were merely a means to meet Sincere Clark once. As long as he returned to Capitol Harbor, she would have a chance to explain everything to him. He had liked her for 10 years. If she could clarify the misunderstandings, surely there would still be a chance to start over. When Lawyer Smith's message arrived, Sincere Clark was sunbathing by the sea. For the past week and a half, he had traveled to 2 or 3 cities and had completely put the troublesome matter of divorce out of his mind. Upon seeing that Victoria had agreed to the divorce, a hint of doubt suddenly arose in his mind. She had been bothering him all these days, and now she agreed so quickly? Was she trying some trick again? To be safe, Sincere Clark consulted Lawyer Smith about the remaining procedures. He learned that both parties had to personally go and get the divorce certificate, otherwise it would have to go to court. Faced with this information, he was speechless. He just wanted a divorce. Why was it so difficult? It seemed his future travel plans had to be put on hold for now. He sighed deeply, put on his sunglasses, returned to the hotel, and started packing his things. The next morning at 10 o'clock, he flew back to Capitol Harbor. George Miller had been waiting at the airport for a long time. As soon as he saw him in the crowd, he exclaimed, "Sincere, look how much you've gotten tanned." This is a healthy tan, seeing him able to joke like that. George Miller, who had been worried about him, felt relieved. He pulled him along and headed home. All the way, Sincere shared stories of his travels, making George Miller envious. At the same time, George Miller was a little worried about the divorce process and asked, "Did Victoria Bellwether really agree to the divorce?" Sincere wasn't entirely sure about that himself, but he had come back this time determined to resolve the matter completely. He nodded with firm resolve. "The cooling-off period is over. It doesn't matter whether she agrees or not. If she changes her mind at the last minute, I can still file for a lawsuit. Don't worry. But if it goes to court, won't it drag out for a long time?" "Yeah, that's why I came back." It's better to resolve it early to avoid complications down the road. Chapter 18. Upon learning from Lawyer Smith that Sincere Clark had returned to Capitol Harbor, Victoria Bellwether immediately tried to arrange a meeting, only to be ruthlessly rejected again. She felt a little disappointed, but there was nothing she could do. She could only wait for him to come to her. During this time, she meticulously read the divorce agreement and the property division agreement countless times. She also purchased many items, matching the layout of the old house. She held on to a glimmer of hope that Sincere Clark would forgive her and attempted to recreate the original setting, wanting to make everything return to normal. Days turned into weeks, and by the end of September, she finally received a call from Lawyer Smith. Sincere Clark wanted to meet her, but the location was outside the registry office. Victoria Bellwether's anticipation instantly vanished, but she still showed up as agreed, without bringing anything. Sincere Clark saw her arrive empty-handed and instantly realized that her agreement to the divorce was just a lie she had fabricated. But he had anticipated it, so he wasn't overly angry, just spoke with impatience. "You agreed to divorce, yet you brought nothing. Is this your sincerity? After not seeing him for over half a month, his first words were about divorce. A glimmer of desolation flickered in Victoria Bellwether's eyes. She stared at him fixedly, trying to find some trace of sadness or sorrow, hoping that would give her the confidence to keep him. But his expression was as calm as a still lake, his eyes bright, and his complexion looked infinitely better than before the divorce. Had she been the only one feeling pain all this time? Victoria Bellwether felt a heavy stone in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Can we talk sincere? Sure. After we get the divorce certificate, I'll listen to whatever you want to talk about. One sentence completely extinguished the tiny hope Victoria Bellwether clung to. Her fingers dug deep into her palms, her voice becoming incredibly hoarse.
I didn't bring my ID.
Could you come back and get it with me? Sincere Clark refused without thinking. Go yourself. I'll wait here. Seeing he wouldn't budge, Victoria Bellwether looked for another excuse. Many things in the house belong to you. I don't know where they are. It might take a long time to find them. This was actually true. But Sincere Clark still felt she had something else planned. After sending a message to George Miller, he finally agreed to go back with her. Sitting in the passenger seat again, both had their own thoughts. Victoria Bellwether couldn't help but recall the last time they had driven back to their alma mater, chatting and laughing. If she had known that was their last meeting before the divorce, she absolutely wouldn't have left. She would have stayed with him, reminisced about their 10 years of youth, then told him her true feelings and kept him by her side. But there was no magic pill for regret in the world, and no time machine. She could only swallow the bitter fruit of her own actions. The car was silent for a while. Victoria Bellwether tried to find a topic of conversation. Where have you been these past few days? Sincere Clark continued to look out the window, his voice still cold. We're divorced. It has nothing to do with you, does it? Those simple words pierced deeply into Victoria Bellwether's heart again. She pursed her lips, her eyes filled with disappointment. We've just finished the cooling off period. We haven't officially divorced yet. If the relevant procedures aren't completed within 30 days, the divorce application becomes void. Sincere Clark had been studying family law intensely these past few days, knowing all the legal clauses inside and out. He had also guessed that Victoria Bellwether might use this regulation to threaten him, so he didn't fall into her trap. He simply changed the subject. No need for lawyer Bellwether to brief me on the new marriage law. I'm actually curious, since you don't even like me, why are you threatening me with a divorce not going through? Are you perhaps dissatisfied with the property division agreement I drafted? Chapter 19. They arrived at a traffic light intersection, and Victoria Bellwether stopped the car, looking at him with grave intensity. I'm not dissatisfied. If you insist on divorcing, I'd agree, even if it meant leaving with nothing. I'm not trying to threaten you either. I just have a lot of things I haven't figured out yet. I'm not reconciled to how things are. Hearing the words "not reconciled" from Victoria Bellwether, a hint of surprise flashed across Sincere Clark's face. Not reconciled about what? Not reconciled about being divorced without knowing? Or not reconciled about him being the one to propose divorce first? Neither of those sincere. Seeing the confused look on his face, Victoria Bellwether chuckled bitterly twice, a faint, inexplicable sigh in her clear voice. I'm not reconciled to being misunderstood by you. I'm not reconciled that you won't give me any chance. I'm not reconciled to severing ties with you like this. Victoria Bellwether didn't understand. Why did he like her so much before, but now, apart from discussing the divorce, he was unwilling to do anything else? This time it was Sincere Clark's turn to be silent. He didn't quite understand what she meant. Hadn't she had a crush on Julian Harrison for many years? Shouldn't she be proposing to him immediately after the divorce? Why was she dragging him here, talking about irrelevant things, and with such an ambiguous tone? This silence gave Victoria Bellwether the opportunity to confess her feelings. Sincere, after watching that video, I finally understood why you left. You think I still like Julian, is that it, isn't it? A single counter-question added a few more layers of guilt to Victoria Bellwether's heart. She forced down the surging sourness in her throat, her voice soft, but filled with 12 parts sincerity and apology. I'm sorry. There are some things I should have made clear to you sooner, but I kept delaying. That's why you misunderstood for so long, and were unhappy for so long. It's all my fault. I'm sorry, Sincere. To Sincere Clark, her apology was utterly out of the blue and strange, but he didn't want to dwell on it. All he wanted was to end everything quickly and gain complete freedom. He had no patience to listen to her delayed repentance. You are indeed sorry to me. So, if you want to compensate me, why not quickly agree to the divorce? Once I have the divorce certificate, I can forgive you for all the mistakes you've made. All the heartfelt words she had prepared for a long time were caught in her throat by this one sentence. The sadness in Victoria Bellwether's eyes grew even stronger. But I don't want a divorce, Sincere. I'm trying to keep you. Can you please give me one more chance? Sincere Clark froze. He frowned and looked at her, even rubbing his eyes, somewhat doubting if this person in front of him was truly Victoria Bellwether, and also wondering if there was a trap behind her words. You were heartbroken for 3 years and couldn't move on. I showered you with affection for 3 years and you remained unmoved. That only proves that our marriage was a hasty and mistaken decision from the start. The reason I want a divorce is simply to correct this mistake. Now Julian Harrison is divorced and seems interested in you. Shouldn't you be supporting my decision and bravely pursuing your true love? Why must you keep clinging to me about this divorce? Because from the day Julian got married, I decided to only view him as a younger brother. Because from my perspective, our marriage wasn't a mistake and it wasn't hasty. I truly and sincerely wanted to spend my life with you. Having known Victoria Bellwether for so many years, this was the first time Sincere Clark had ever heard such solemn, nearly confessional words from her. But he had already woken up from that unrealistic, decade-long fantasy. He wouldn't be swayed by a few words anymore. He closed his eyes, avoiding her piercing gaze, his voice calm and sharp. Do you sincerely believe what you're saying? Chapter 20. Sincere Clark didn't believe her. For Victoria Bellwether, this was a great blow. But she also knew that she had personally eroded his trust in her. She could only blame herself. And this outcome, she had anticipated it countless times in her mind. It was still within the realm of what she could accept. She took a deep breath, her tone becoming even more resolute. I will prove that everything I'm saying is true, Sincere. Will you please give me one more chance? The car had already pulled into the underground garage and stopped. Sincere Clark unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the car door, his voice carrying a tone of tired perfunctory. Hand me the divorce certificate, and you can prove whatever you want. With that, he ignored her reaction and walked straight to the elevator. The conversation had circled back to divorce. Victoria Bellwether finally understood that he was determined to go through with it. Her hands clenched tightly into fists, veins bulging on her arms, but she couldn't release the pain in her heart. She could only follow him upstairs. After entering the code, the door chimed open. Sincere Clark walked in with his head down, hesitant for a moment whether to change his shoes, when a pair of slippers shaped like little bears in the shoe cabinet caught his eye. This pair of slippers was exactly the same as the ones he used to wear at the old house, but he clearly remembered throwing that pair away on the day he left. Why was there an identical pair here? He looked up in confusion, and seeing the layout of the room, he froze in place. Looking at the scene that felt like a distortion of time and space, Sincere Clark finally couldn't help but speak. Why did you renovate the place like this? And where did you get these identical items? Victoria Bellwether followed his gaze around the room, her voice filled with nostalgia. I always thought you would move in with me and we'd start a new life here. I never expected you to have planned to leave already, and even leave me alone here. If I didn't renovate it this way, I would feel like I had no home. As for these things, they weren't hard to find. It just took a little extra effort. If the memories of the past weren't so deeply ingrained, Sincere Clark might actually have felt a twinge of guilt for abandoning her. But now, he was too lazy to play this sentimental game with her anymore. He didn't even bother to change his shoes. With a long stride, he walked in. Good. It'll be easier for me to sort through. The sooner I get the documents, the sooner we divorce. It's quite convenient." Since they had reconnected, every word Sincere Clark spoke felt like a barb aimed directly at Victoria Bellwether's heart. She finally realized that he wasn't naturally docile at all. Instead, he had a personality where every sentence was sharp and cutting. He had disguised his true self just to enter her world, to maintain this marriage. So, the neglect and indifference he had endured during those 3 years, the hidden grievances and pain, must have been 100 times more than she had imagined. He had acted against his nature to accommodate her, tolerating a marriage that felt fundamentally wrong to him at every turn, and she had taken all his efforts for granted, never once showed understanding. Instead, she had twisted the knife in his wound, making him completely lose faith in this relationship. At this moment, the truth pierced Victoria Bellwether's heart like a sharp knife. She felt her internal organs cramping along with her pounding heart, as if she was being torn into pieces. She couldn't stop or resist the intense pain, only let it rage within her body, because it was all her own doing. Chapter 21. It only took 10 minutes for Sincere Clark, comparing it to the information he had gathered, to find all the necessary documents. After checking and confirming everything was in order, he walked out with the file bag. Seeing Victoria Bellwether collapsed by the door, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. What act was she putting on now? Surely she wasn't faking illness to delay the divorce date? Reaching her side, Sincere Clark felt highly suspicious, his tone laced with doubt. Feeling unwell? This wasn't a question of concern, but of accusation. Victoria Bellwether could naturally distinguish the difference. She shook her head, propped herself up against the door, and managed a strained smile. "I'm fine. Let's go." Seeing her push the door open, Sincere Clark slowly lowered his guard and followed her out. On the way back to the registry office, neither of them spoke. Sincere Clark kept checking his watch, calculating the time. To rush things along, he even took her hand voluntarily as they exited the car and hurried upstairs. Victoria Bellwether recalled their wedding day. Perhaps afraid she would change her mind, he had been just as impatient that day. Her mood wasn't great then, but seeing his hurried appearance, she couldn't help but laugh, and her fear of marriage lessened slightly. Who would have thought that 3 years later, they would enter this place again, only for a divorce? Looking at couples huddled together around them, ready to divorce, she suddenly felt that divorce wasn't such a big deal after all. Since Sincere Clark said their marriage was a mistake, then let it end. Only by stopping the mistake here could she have a chance to start over. She wouldn't trap his freedom within a marriage. Once divorced, she would return to his side with a different identity. This time, it was her turn to prove her feelings for him from scratch. Although she didn't know if he would be like her, giving her a chance, Victoria Bellwether was no longer lost. She was willing to spend 10 years, or even the rest of her life, pursuing him, not for anything else, but for the promise she made when they got married. She had decided to walk through life hand in hand with him, and she would never regret it. They finished the paperwork exactly at 5 o'clock, closing time. Looking at the brand new divorce certificate, Sincere Clark felt a sense of relief. Even looking at Victoria Bellwether felt a little less bothersome. He flexed his wrist, his voice incredibly light. "All right, thank you for your care these past few years. We're even now." Goodbye with that, he stepped forward to walk, but she held onto his wrist. "Who said we're even?" Sincere Clark looked at the divorce certificate in his hand, then looked at her face, highly doubting her confident expression at that moment. "The law has ruled us divorced. How are we not even now? Yes, in terms of legal status, we are no longer husband and wife. But our relationship as old college classmates will not change. Then let me remind you, our relationship in college wasn't that close, and there wasn't any connection worth developing further." Victoria Bellwether didn't deny this. "True. I wasn't very warm towards you back then. Whose fault is it that you kept clinging to me?" This was the first time Sincere Clark had ever heard her voluntarily bring up his past pursuit, and at such an awkward moment right after their divorce. His expression became unnatural, That was a long time ago. Is there any point in bringing it up now? Not really. Let's talk about recent events then. Recent events? What events? Sincere Clark didn't know what she was playing at. Just as he was about to ask for clarification, Victoria Bellwether spoke calmly. Didn't you say that after the divorce, bygones would be bygones, and you would listen to whatever I wanted to talk about? Chapter 22. Sincere Clark's smiling lips twitched slightly. He did seem to have said that, but heavens knew he only said it to push her to divorce quickly. He absolutely had no intention of having an in-depth conversation with her. Who would want to have an awkward chat with their ex-wife right after getting the divorce certificate? Shouldn't people be celebrating their new freedom by drinking with good friends? Although he was always a man of his word, at this wonderful moment he didn't want to spoil his mood, so he made an excuse. I did say that, but I didn't say we have to talk about it right now, did I? Maybe next time, when I have time. Victoria Bellwether didn't let go. After the last time you tricked me into signing the divorce agreement and then disappeared without a word, it's hard for me to trust what you say anymore. You also changed all your contact information. If you leave again today and disappear, where am I supposed to find you to make good on your promise? Perhaps bolstered by her identity as a lawyer, seeing her righteously accusing him, Sincere Clark inexplicably felt a twinge of guilt. Victoria Bellwether keenly noticed the subtle changes in his expression and continued her soft approach. You wanted a divorce. Although I was unwilling, I still agreed. I may have delayed for a moment, but in the end, the result was what you wanted. I respected your wishes so much and didn't even pursue the matter of you tricking me before. I just want to have an open and honest conversation with you. Are you not even willing to give me this chance? 4 years as classmates, 3 years as husband and wife. Do you really have to be so cold-hearted? After getting the divorce certificate, Sincere Clark became a little carried away, completely forgetting the resolute, hard-hearted attitude he had maintained before. This was also the first time he had ever seen Victoria Bellwether humble herself like this in front of him, so he couldn't help but soften a little. He proactively took out his phone.
All right then, I'll give you my contact information.
But you're not allowed to bother me with messages like you did the other day, and you need to speak politely. As for meeting in person, we can discuss a time later. Victoria Bellwether was afraid he would change his mind. She added his contact information at lightning speed, then let go of his wrist and followed him downstairs, continuously nagging along the way. Then you also have to promise me not to block me, not to delete me, and not to ignore my messages. Keep your word. Sincere Clark's ears were ringing from her incessant talking, and his patience wore thin again. As long as you maintain the proper boundaries of a classmate and don't do anything that crosses the line, I promise I won't delete you with this assurance. Victoria Bellwether finally relaxed completely. She opened the passenger door and respectfully gestured for him to enter. Sincere Clark pretended not to see it and went to hail a taxi by the roadside. He had just turned around when a long, melancholic sigh came from behind him. We're divorced, and you won't even take a ride from me? So cold-hearted. The remark sent shivers down Sincere Clark's spine. He immediately sped up, got into a taxi, and urged the driver to hurry. As soon as he opened the door upon returning to George Miller's place, 2 party poppers went off, startling him. He looked at the room filled with balloons and flowers, the snacks and cake on the table, and the celebrating being single banners, and his eyes welled up. George Miller, afraid he would cry, quickly patted his shoulder and whispered gently, coaxing him, "Why the tears on such a joyous day? Swallow them back, we're celebrating tonight. To commemorate this happy day, the emotions Sincere Clark had suppressed for so long were finally released at this moment." He wiped his tears on George Miller's shirt and nodded repeatedly. Celebrate? You can't even drink as much as I can. Oh, listen to him, the man who hasn't touched a drop in 3 years, dares to talk big in front of me today. I'll show you who can outdrink who. Come on today. I'll make sure you understand what it means to be in your prime. Chapter 23. After a night of heavy drinking, Sincere Clark slept until afternoon. George Miller had already gone to work. After a simple lunch, feeling somewhat bored, he left the house carrying his bag, planning to complete a few items from the list he had made a few days ago. He picked up a fruit basket at the fruit store downstairs and took a taxi directly to the law firm to meet with Lawyer Smith over the past couple of months. Lawyer Smith had put in a lot of effort for his divorce, maintaining professional confidentiality to protect his information security, and acting as an intermediary to relay many messages. Lawyer Smith had likely also frequently advised Victoria Bellwether, which allowed him to get the divorce relatively smoothly. Many of the things he did went beyond the lawyer's standard duties. Sincere Clark felt he had caused him a lot of trouble and felt somewhat guilty, so he decided to express his gratitude in person. Upon learning that they had already received their divorce certificate, Lawyer Smith's face showed a look of regret. "Brother-in-law, why did you keep it from me back then?" Sincere Clark felt truly apologetic towards Lawyer Smith. While apologizing, he didn't forget to correct him. "We're already divorced. Calling me brother-in-law isn't quite appropriate anymore, Lawyer Smith. If you don't mind, just call me Sincere. I didn't actually intend to keep it from you. It's just, as you know, we were married in secret and hadn't made it public. I didn't want to put you in a difficult position, so I didn't inform you." Hearing about the secret marriage, Lawyer Smith could understand his position and didn't press the matter further. "Right, it's all Victoria's fault. She shouldn't have kept it from us. I heard you were old classmates for many years and ended up divorcing so hastily. It sounds like some emotional knots might not be untied yet. Do you really not plan on having any contact in the future?" This question struck a chord with Sincere Clark. Until yesterday, he had intended to cut off all ties with Victoria Bellwether, but seeing her attitude yesterday, he felt it would be difficult to make a clean break. Leaving aside the fact that they were still college classmates, just the matter of explaining the divorce clearly to his parents felt like a headache. Given his parents' temperament, they would likely go and cause a scene with Victoria Bellwether before letting it go. He would definitely need to explain things to her beforehand then. It seemed that becoming strangers would only be possible after everything was completely resolved. After figuring this out, Sincere Clark also wanted to sigh but held it back. "We were together for 3 years. We never argued or had a serious fight, and the divorce also went quite smoothly. We aren't quite estranged spouses, but we also can't go back to how things were. As for what happens in the future, it's hard to say. Maybe we'll keep in contact. Maybe we'll just go our separate ways." Seeing that he hadn't completely shut down the possibility, Lawyer Smith felt a glimmer of relief. Over the past half-month, Victoria Bellwether had been driven nearly mad trying to prevent the divorce. After all, she was a mentee he had personally guided. He was somewhat worried she might break down after the divorce. But looking at the current situation, it didn't seem like she had reached a dead end. Perhaps there was still room for things to change? Lawyer Smith wasn't sure himself, but for Victoria Bellwether's future, he still tried his best to put in a few good words for her. They exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then Sincere Clark got up to leave. Lawyer Smith opened the door for him but was startled by Victoria Bellwether's sudden appearance, reflexively clutching his chest. "What are you doing hiding outside my office?" Victoria Bellwether's gaze went past him, fixing directly on Sincere Clark inside. Lawyer Smith then understood. He quickly moved aside, ushered Sincere Clark out, and swiftly closed the door. Sincere Clark was also startled by her. He had specifically asked Lawyer Smith if she was on leave today before coming, precisely to avoid her. Who knew she had somehow gotten wind of it and rushed over again? He had 2 more social engagements to attend, and he didn't want to get entangled with her here, so he just flatly told her to move aside. Victoria Bellwether stepped aside a couple of paces, and he went downstairs without hesitation. As he stepped out the door, it began to rain heavily. The water level on the streets was already up to his knees. Seeing the empty streets, Sincere Clark was stunned. He took out his phone to call a taxi, but after 10 minutes, no car accepted the request, and the rain showed no sign of stopping, growing heavier by the minute. The weather forecast said it wouldn't stop until 7 or 8 in the evening. Was he going to have to wait here for 6 hours? Chapter 24, Need a Ride? Sincere Clark turned around and saw Victoria Bellwether leaning against the doorway, looking at him with eyes full of concern. He pretended not to hear her and didn't respond. Victoria Bellwether didn't feel awkward and continued to speak on her own. The last time it rained this hard was about a year ago, wasn't it? We were both home that day, and you said you wanted to bake a cake yourself. Her voice mixed with the patter of the rain, recounting old stories buried in time. With nowhere else to go, Sincere Clark was forced to listen to her reminisce. As he listened, some scenes would appear in his mind, and the calm state of his heart began to fluctuate. From the rain to their first date, from their married life to their college days, Victoria Bellwether seemed lost in it, the sense of nostalgia in her voice growing stronger. The memories she spoke of were beautiful and interesting, but to Sincere Clark they only brought a sense of emptiness, of people having left and the scene gone cold. He finally couldn't help but interrupt her. "Since you're so free, why don't you use your car to make some money?" Her purpose achieved, Victoria Bellwether quickly invited him into the car. To avoid further conversation, Sincere Clark closed his eyes and pretended to nap as soon as he got in. Victoria Bellwether didn't speak again. Just seeing him sitting beside her made her heart slowly settle down. Upon reaching their destination, Sincere Clark took out a $100 bill from his wallet and handed it to her. "Thanks for the ride. Keep the change." Victoria Bellwether didn't refuse and accepted it with a smile. "It was a pleasure assisting you. Feel free to contact me for any future travel needs." Sincere Clark was too lazy to waste words with her. He pushed the car door open and was about to leave when she called out to him. "Julian wants your contact information. Is that okay?" Hearing that name, Sincere Clark's heart sank. He remembered adding him secretly before, but he quickly recalled that account was already unregistered, so he relaxed again and nodded slightly. The verification message came over, and Sincere Clark accepted it quickly. Seeing recipient is typing, displayed on the screen for a long time, he felt uneasy. Why did Julian Harrison suddenly want to contact him? Did he find out something? As he was guessing, a message came through, directly revealing the reason. "Sincere, are you free tomorrow? I'd like to meet and talk." After typing for so long, it was just this one sentence, but Sincere Clark didn't know how to reply. Facing Julian Harrison, his emotions were always complex. Before the divorce, they were arguably love rivals, but he also understood that they weren't in direct opposition. The root of the problem lay with Victoria Bellwether. Back then, he admired Julian Harrison, mixed with a hint of jealousy and the helplessness of unrequited love. He didn't want to get too close to him, nor did he want any conflict. After the divorce, they were merely casual acquaintances who had met a few times. By rights, he should have politely refused, as the only shred of connection they had was now severed. But for some reason, Sincere Clark inexplicably wanted to accept the invitation, wanting to hear what he wanted to talk about. Driven by curiosity, he agreed, setting a time and place to meet. Chapter 25. Upon seeing Julian Harrison at the coffee shop, Sincere Clark felt a sense of looking at a distant past. After a month apart, he seemed to have grown a bit thinner, his spirit and complexion much worse than before. Sincere Clark was somewhat surprised by his change, but greeted him politely nonetheless. After placing their orders, the two, who weren't very familiar with each other, didn't know what to say. Finally, it was Julian Harrison who broke the silence first. "Sincere, the reason I asked to meet you today is actually to apologize to you. I'm sorry." Faced with his sincere apology, a hint of surprise flashed across Sincere Clark's face, and he quickly waved his hand. "Nothing really happened between us. You don't need to apologize." Hearing him being so magnanimous and not holding a grudge at all, the guilt in Julian Harrison's eyes grew stronger. "That day, I didn't know you were married to Victoria. I said a lot of foolish things that probably hurt your feelings. I'm sorry." So it was for this small matter. A slight ripple appeared in Sincere Clark's heart, and his gaze towards him held a hint of pity. I was the one who kept it from you first. You were just saying what was on your mind. I won't take it to heart. Besides, back then I had already decided to get a divorce. Your words actually strengthened my resolve. In a way, I should thank you. Otherwise, I might not have been able to move on so quickly. Julian Harrison knew these words were meant to comfort him, but he couldn't overcome the barrier in his heart. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Things have gotten to this point, and both Victoria and I are responsible. We wronged you. Seeing him insist on taking responsibility, Sincere Clark was at a loss for words for a moment. Julian Harrison's emotions, caught in guilt, gradually became agitated. Sincere, I also wanted to tell you that Victoria and I have talked things through. From now on, she and I are just siblings. Could you please think about giving her another chance? This sudden turn in the conversation stunned Sincere Clark. Shouldn't the two of them be deeply in love, heading straight to the registry office on the day of their divorce? Why were they both trying to persuade him to reconcile? This question had been circling in Sincere Clark's mind for a long time. This time, he finally couldn't help but ask, Victoria and I are divorced. Why aren't you two together? Julian Harrison's voice began to choke. I've known for a long time that Victoria likes me, but I've always only seen her as a sister, so I pretended not to know. Later, I married my first love, but she cheated on me after a few months and I was devastated then. Victoria was the one who helped me get through the darkest period. I didn't know she was married and thought she still liked me, and slowly I was moved by her. But gradually I could feel that her kindness to me was different from before. Before, her eyes towards me held the spark of attraction for the opposite sex. But after I got divorced, although she was very helpful, I always felt like she treated me more like a blood sister, which constantly made me feel like I had an older sister instead of a younger one. Didn't we talk a lot that day? The reason I finally asked your opinion of Victoria was just because a bystander sees more than the person in the thick of it. I couldn't distinguish her true feelings for me, but after listening to you talk, I thought my previous feeling was wrong, and that's when I started thinking about being with her. You disappeared after the divorce. When I looked for her, I learned the truth. At that moment, I felt incredibly guilty. After all, my own marriage was ruined by a third party, so I couldn't accept the fact that I had disrupted Victoria's marriage. Regardless of how she felt, our story from that moment on could only remain confined to the level of friends. Later, when I saw Victoria looking for you like she was crazy, I saw in her eyes the feeling she had for me before. That's when I understood that my sixth sense was correct earlier. She truly doesn't like me anymore. She had a new family and had slowly moved on from the past shadows, starting a new life. Everything should have headed in a good direction, but I, the variable, changed the course of the story. Sincere. How could I not feel guilty? Chapter 26. Hearing the end of this, Sincere Clark felt as though a boulder had been thrown into his heart, stirring up a storm. He hadn't expected that from Julian Harrison's perspective, the story would be so completely different. Although surprised, he didn't necessarily believe this was the absolute truth. After all, when it comes to love, like drinking water, only the person knows its warmth or coldness. If Victoria Bellwether had truly liked him, wouldn't he have sensed even a little bit of it? So, facing Julian Harrison's earnest persuasion and explanation, he remained silent for a moment before replying. Regardless of whether her feelings for you were love, kinship, or friendship, in my opinion, they were far deeper than they were for me, her ex-husband. The reason I pushed for a divorce wasn't entirely because of your appearance. It was also the accumulation of various small and large things over time that made me confront the reality of our marriage, and ultimately led to my complete disappointment. Seeing Sincere calmly stating the facts, Julian Harrison also felt deeply affected. The words of advice he hadn't had a chance to say stopped at his lips. Their gazes met in the air. Looking at Julian Harrison's slightly red eyes, Sincere Clark sighed softly. After all, this matter is between Victoria Bellwether and me. You are innocent and shouldn't have been drawn into it. Now that her divorce from me is a decided fact, even I, the one involved, have come to terms with it and am moving on. What is there for you, the bystander, to be conflicted about? Let go of everything and live your life well. Both you and I still have time to start anew." Although the conversation ended, Julian Harrison's emotions remained unsettled for a long time. He sat there recovering for quite a while before he finally understood what Sincere Clark meant. Everything from yesterday is like it died yesterday. Everything today is like being reborn today. Yesterday's everything is like yesterday dead. Today's everything is like today newborn. Let bygones be bygones. In that instant, the dark clouds and thick fog that had been piled in his heart dissipated. He got up and walked to the private room next door, pushing the door open. The room was quiet. Looking at Victoria Bellwether, who was leaning back in her chair, silent and unmoving, he softly called out her name. "Victoria, are you okay?" Every word of their conversation just now had reached Victoria Bellwether's ears, not missing a single one. She was not okay, but in front of Julian Harrison she composed herself and feigned calmness. "I'm fine." Her voice carried a slight tremor, which Julian Harrison quickly noticed. He lowered his head, sat down across from her, thought for a long time, and finally found a few comforting words.
"I can understand how Sincere is feeling.
Although I don't know what happened between you two these past 3 years, it must have made him very unhappy, which is why he wants to end everything and start over. Victoria, seeing as he has let go of the past, you should too." Victoria Bellwether understood the logic Julian Harrison spoke of perfectly well, but she knew that the pain and despair Sincere Clark felt in their marriage were entirely due to her. She was the culprit who caused this outcome. What right did she have to talk about letting go? No amount of comfort was effective for her. She also didn't want Julian Harrison to worry about her anymore, so she changed the subject, offering to give him a ride back. Before parting, Julian Harrison asked her a question. "Victoria, can you let go of Sincere? Can she—" "No, probably not," Victoria Bellwether thought. A melancholic smile appeared on her face, but her voice held a hint of determination. "He pursued me for 10 years. Although I married him, I never truly put him in my heart or treated him well. So losing him is just the punishment I deserve. 3 years as husband and wife. He has become an indispensable part of my life. How could I just let go? Whether he dislikes me or hates me, I want to try again, regardless of the outcome. I will only follow my heart." Julian Harrison didn't press further. He raised his hand and waved, a genuine smile appearing on his lips. "Victoria, thank you for everything all these years." After saying goodbye to all his friends, Sincere Clark packed his luggage, ready to continue the incomplete round-the-country trip tour. George Miller saw him off at the airport, clinging to him and refusing to let go. "Be careful doing your thing out there. Call me right away if anything happens. Remember to take pictures of the good food, fun places, and beautiful sights and send them to me. If you get tired and can't find anywhere to stay, just come straight back. Anyway, you know the code to my place." Listening to his rambling, Sincere Clark looked helpless. "I'm going on a trip, not moving to another state. Can you stop being so sentimental?" These simple words broke the atmosphere of farewell. George Miller couldn't help but pinch his mouth. "Your buddy is just worried you'll go crazy again. Last time you didn't reply to a message for days. Of course I need to give you extra instructions. I've explained it. Hundreds of times I replied to you with my thoughts. Stop harping on it." The two of them bickered like kids for a few sentences. Seeing it was time to board, they finally parted ways reluctantly. Sincere Clark went through security with his bag on his back and was still looking for his seat on the plane when George Miller's message came through. "I just saw someone whose back looks just like Victoria Bellwether's." One sentence successfully raised Sincere Clark's guard. He subconsciously scanned the surroundings, and only when he didn't see that familiar face did he feel a little relieved. "You must be mistaken. It's very likely her. Be extra careful." Sincere Clark was half believing, half doubting. He hadn't revealed his travel plans to anyone. How could Victoria Bellwether possibly know? But to be safe, he still sent a message to Lawyer Smith to inquire. Victoria submitted her resignation the day before yesterday. "I don't know where she is. The moment he saw this message, Sincere Clark felt a bad premonition. Victoria Bellwether resigned? Could the person George Miller saw just now really be her? He was still speculating when a familiar voice from behind him directly revealed the answer. "Excuse me, sir, could you please move aside?" The instant he heard that voice, Sincere Clark's body froze. He turned around with a blank expression and saw Victoria Bellwether standing right behind him, feigning surprise as she greeted him. Sincere. What a coincidence. Whether it was a coincidence or not, both of them knew perfectly well. Sincere Clark was too lazy to play along with her act and frowned tightly. "Why are you on this plane?" "Business trip," she replied. Seeing that she lied just as effortlessly as before, without her face turning red or her heart pounding, Sincere Clark exposed her directly. "Didn't you resign?" Victoria Bellwether showed no shame at her lie being exposed. Instead, her eyes were full of surprise, and her voice contained delight. "You knew right after I resigned, Sincere? Are you that concerned about me?" Sincere Clark was left speechless and gave up on further communication, returning to his seat. Unexpectedly, Victoria Bellwether also sat down and even waved her ticket in response to his questioning look. "We're in neighboring seats. Are you following me, Lawyer Bellwether? That's illegal. Please provide evidence that I'm following you, or you'll be spreading rumors. Sincere." Sincere Clark naturally didn't have evidence. He could only try to reason with her. "We're already divorced. Can't we just move on separately? Why do you have to keep clinging to me?" Seeing how agitated he was, Victoria Bellwether knew he must be getting angry, and her mood instantly became low. "You promised me we'd talk properly, but you just left without saying a word again. I was just worried you would disappear again." Sincere Clark looked up at the sky in exasperation. He took a deep breath, turned to look at her, and spoke with a serious, amiable tone. "Fine, what do you want to talk about? Let's talk now. I'm all ears." Chapter 28. Did you decide to get a divorce because you saw that photo album? Victoria Bellwether was the first to ask the question that had been bothering her. Sincere Clark didn't hesitate and answered honestly. Yes and no. The thought had been there for a long time. The photo album just ignited it. Even if I hadn't seen the album, I would have proposed divorce on some other day, after I couldn't bear it any longer. His certain tone brought a fresh wave of guilt to Victoria Bellwether's heart. I wasn't good enough. You had so many dissatisfactions with me. Why didn't you tell me? Sincere Clark glanced at her, his tone light and breezy. Didn't you also fail to tell me that you liked Julian Harrison? I was just imitating you. I chose silence. Seeing that he was still misunderstanding, Victoria Bellwether quickly began to explain. I did like him, but that was a long time ago. After we got married, I was slowly letting go of him, wanting to live our lives together properly. Sincere Clark didn't particularly want to hear her weak and hollow words and interrupted her directly. I don't care when you let go of him. I also don't care if you had genuine feelings for me or not, because it's all in the past. I don't want to waste energy on things that aren't worth it anymore. Do you understand what I mean? Looking at his clear and resolute eyes, Victoria Bellwether could only swallow the explanations she had prepared for a long time. Her hands were tightly clasped together, her knuckles white from the force, her eyes filled only with deep helplessness and sorrow. Sincere Clark wasn't concerned about her mood at all. He was just relieved that the world had become quiet again. He took out his headphones and eye mask and prepared to rest properly. The plane soared above Capitol Harbor, flying through the clouds. The cabin became quiet. Victoria Bellwether turned her head and looked at his peaceful, sleeping face so close by. Her turbulent emotions slowly calmed down. He was so resistant to her bringing up the past, she could only give up on that for now. But that didn't mean he intended to give up on him altogether. 2 hours later, the plane landed at River City Airport. Sincere Clark was pushing his luggage cart and about to get into a car when he caught sight of Victoria Bellwether standing behind him in the rearview mirror. He couldn't help but glare at her. Everything that needed to be said and shouldn't have been said is already done. Are you still going to keep clinging to me? It's not like we've cleared everything up. We've just put what happened after we got married behind us. But the 7 years before that, and the rest of our lives ahead, we still have a lot to talk about, don't we? Isn't it just about me having a crush on you for 7 years, and then after the divorce, we go our separate ways for the rest of our lives? What's there to talk about? Victoria Bellwether looked at him quietly. Even after everything they had been through, seeing him now, the first thing that came to her mind was the scene of him confessing to her for the first time. She had gently rejected his affection then, thinking their story would end there. Who would have thought this story would continue for 10 years without reaching its conclusion? Only this time, it was her turn to pursue him, following his footsteps. The past is set in stone, but the future is uncertain, sincere. Don't make conclusions so early. After a decade, Sincere Clark froze when he heard this sentence again. He looked up, seeing her standing in front of him with her hands behind her back, and the long-buried memories in his mind stirred. At dusk, in the plaza of S University, the warm yellow light illuminated hurried passers-by. Sincere Clark stopped Victoria Bellwether in front of the library. Blushingly, he mustered the courage to confess and predictably received a thank you. At that moment, his heart was filled with frustration and annoyance. He couldn't help but run his hand through his hair. A soft chuckle came from above. He looked up and saw the faint smile on her lips. Filled with passion and stubbornness back then, he mistakenly thought she was laughing at him. Thus, he told her very seriously, "Right now you might not like me yet, but the future is uncertain, Miss Bellwether. Don't make conclusions so early." No one expected that years later, after many twists and turns, this sentence would travel through time and reach both their ears again. Only the roles of the two people had reversed. Chapter 29. In October, the temperature in River City slowly dropped. The autumn wind blew, sweeping away the exhaustion from a long journey. Sincere Clark walked slowly towards the hotel, checking his reservation details. As soon as he reached the front desk, he ran into Victoria Bellwether again. Once or twice might be a coincidence, but by the third time, Sincere Clark couldn't stand it anymore. This is a big city with so many hotels. Don't tell me this is another coincidence. Facing his angry accusation, Victoria Bellwether's expression remained unchanged. Coincidence can be fate, or it can be orchestrated by people. Regardless of which it is, if you manage to encounter someone, doesn't it require luck? Maybe I'm just lucky and we're destined to cross paths? Sincere Clark massaged his temples, trying to keep his composure. If we were really destined, would things have ended up in divorce? Stop lying with your eyes wide open, Victoria Bellwether. Is it possible that our destiny began only after the divorce? She spoke with conviction, but Sincere Clark felt she was just spouting nonsense and couldn't help but retort mockingly. Well, I say our destiny ran out the day we divorced now. It's just bad karma. Victoria Bellwether nodded in strong agreement. Perhaps it's bad karma, but that's not entirely bad. If you hadn't kept creating encounters 7 years ago, leaving such a deep impression on me, I wouldn't have seen you as my first choice for marriage, and all these entanglements wouldn't have stretched out until today. Since you feel the bad karma you sought before has run out, I'm very willing to learn from your persistence and never give up spirit from before and renew our connection. In Sincere Clark's opinion, his pursuing Victoria Bellwether for 4 years was practically a blemish on his life record. Especially hearing her talk about it herself, it was hard for him not to become frustrated and angry. Do you only dwell on the past? I also create encounters. Sincere Clark was almost amused by her unwavering attitude. What did I do wrong to be stuck with you? Victoria Bellwether looked at him with intense eyes, filled with a complex mix of emotions. Your mistake was getting my attention 10 years ago, Sincere. Sincere Clark unusually agreed with her this time. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to calm down, and tried to reason with her. All right, what do you want exactly? How can I get you to leave me alone? I'm not deliberately clinging to you. Everything is just fate. Why don't you believe me? Seeing she was still using these nebulous excuses as a shield, Sincere Clark completely lost patience and decided to just get it over with. Fine, you like talking about fate, right? Then let's make a bet and see if it's truly fate. Victoria Bellwether's gaze hardened slightly, and a hint of confusion appeared in her voice.
Bet on what?
Sincere Clark glanced at the time, speaking rapidly as if counting beads on an abacus. We'll each take $100 cash, no phones, and get on 2 buses going in opposite directions from the hotel entrance. If you can find me before midnight tonight, then I'll believe we are destined. And if I find you, what's the reward? If I don't find you, what's the penalty? Sincere Clark was waiting for her to ask this question. The reward and penalty are the same. The losing party just grants the winning party one request and strictly carries it out. Victoria Bellwether nodded understandingly. She agreed without hesitation and directly stated her request. If I win, I just want you to give me one chance to pursue you again. Not hearing the words "get remarried," Sincere Clark breathed a sigh of relief. But he quickly noticed something was off and looked at her with suspicion. Are you that confident you'll win? Victoria Bellwether smiled and didn't say anything. She handed her phone to him and turned away, indicating her answer by her action. Aren't you going to ask for my request first? With her back to him, Victoria Bellwether raised her hand and waved. No need to know, because she was certain of her victory and determined to succeed. The last bus in River City stopped running at 9 o'clock. Victoria Bellwether took it all the way to the terminal stop, then got off and sat on a bench, gazing at the neon lights in the distance. The lights in the office building opposite changed 3,000 times in an hour, if she hadn't miscounted. When they reached 5,000 clicks, she stood up and hailed a taxi back to the hotel. If she hadn't been mistaken before she left, the key card in Sincere Clark's hand was for room 1508. Stepping into the elevator, she directly pressed the 15th floor. It was late at night, and the entire floor was silent. She walked to the door of room 8, leaned against the wall, and quietly waited for midnight to arrive. As the clock hands moved closer to 12, her heart beat faster. She wasn't entirely sure about this bet. She believed her connection with Sincere Clark wasn't over, so she had returned here by instinct. At 11:59, the elevator door chimed open. She straightened up, lowered her hands by her sides, and turned around. Meeting a shocked gaze head-on,